Hey everyone, welcome to this episode, something you guys have been looking forward to for a while, and that has to do with Google Ad suspensions. And so what I have done is I've reached out to John from StubGroup to help us answer some questions about Google Ad suspensions. And so John, thank you so much for coming on and helping out.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Ivan.
Of course. May we know some of your, like, what is your experience with Google Ads? What do you do? Like, what can you help my subscribers with?
Yeah, absolutely. So my company, StubGroup, we are a premier Google partner. We've been doing Google Ads and other platforms for close to a decade now. And for pretty much that entirety of that time, we have also had a bit of a specialty in Google compliance and helping clients make sure that they don't get suspended by Google, or if they do get suspended, fix that and reinstate their accounts. And we've seen pretty much every permutation of Google policy over the last decade.
Okay, that's amazing because compliance is huge and it's getting harder and harder to get through, especially if you're an affiliate.
Very
And
much so.
I know that you have some experience with affiliates and you can definitely shed some light, right? Okay.
Yes, we have lots of affiliates reaching out for help because that's a particularly sensitive area to Google. So I've got lots of experience there for sure.
Perfect. Okay. So, in that case, now that we have the introductions out of the way, I have some questions of my own, of course, and then I went through some questions of my subscribers that they have been asking me nonstop for the past few years now on my videos, especially the Google ad videos. And I think we can all summarize, we can sum down these questions into three umbrellas, three areas that I'd like to explore a little further with you on this call. And so the first area is for somebody that's brand new, that hasn't been banned before, has never created an account before, what are your tips for creating an account in compliance with Google Ads without getting banned? Because me, for example, I had this experience, not firsthand, secondhand, you can say. I was helping a family member create an account, and I'm not banned or anything, so it's not like my IP is banned or anything. And before we entered payment info, before we entered a campaign, their account was banned right off the bat. And again,
Gotcha.
nothing to do with IP, nothing to do with credit card. I'm not banned, so it's not like anything could be tied. So just curious, what could potentially have gone wrong? We did submit an appeal, we got it back, but a lot of people don't get their accounts back. So we'd love to know your thoughts on that. Then as a follow-up to that, if your account does get banned, what do you do? Do you just send an appeal and that's it? Is there anything else you can do? And then last but not least, the third topic is for somebody that does get banned and that wants to open a new account, what do you suggest? Like, should you even try opening a new account? Do you have to use new everything, a new name, a new SIM card number, everything like that? So does it sound like these are the topics of expertise that you can help us with?
Absolutely. Yeah, this is what we work with every single day. So 100%. Let's dig in. I'm
That's
excited.
amazing. All right. So then
All
with
right.
starting with the first topic, somebody that's completely brand new, what are your tips for creating an account without overstepping on Google Ad policies?
Yeah, so completely brand new. First thing you're going to do is have an email address that you're going to be using to create the Google Ads account. So typically recommend get a Gmail address, or it could be a Google Workspaces address, and it has to be a Google address of some kind in order to create a Google Ads account. So you take that address. I'd say it's preferable if you already have history with that email address rather than going out and just creating a brand new one. It's not necessarily a problem to create a brand new one, but if you've got one that already has history and is kind of established, I would recommend using that. And make sure that that account isn't associated with any other Google Ads accounts. Even if you think, oh yeah, I've never created one. If there's a chance, a decade ago you were playing around, you created one, or your friend added your email address to their account or something like that, check for that first. And the best way to check for that is first try to sign in to Google Ads by just going to ads.google.com, sign in with that Google account. And if it takes you to a screen saying, hey, you have no accounts connected to your email address, then good. If you see an account pop up, then you want to figure out what's going on with that before you would create a new account using that email address. So assuming that you're seeing that screen and hey, there's no accounts associated, then you can move forward and create an account. And be very careful as you create the Google Ads account to be thorough and accurate in any information Google's asking for from you. So typically when you create an account, very early on, Google's going to be asking you for payment information to set up your what they call payment profile. So they're looking for initially for an email address, or excuse me, a physical address, your name, phone number, etc. When you enter those things, get it right. Don't put typos. Don't leave out anything. Don't, like if you're setting up as a business, don't put your personal name in the business name. Anything like that can be a red flag to Google. So make sure it's picture perfect and make sure that the address you're entering is going to match the address for the payment method you're going to use. So for example, if you've got a home address and a business address, make sure that you're using the address that's going to be on that card, whether that's your home or business or whatever address. Because if Google sees any mismatch between those things, that's often a red flag. That'll get you flagged for what they call suspicious payments and get an account suspended. So make sure all that's perfect. Make sure the name that you enter in the Google Ads account matches what's going to be on your payment method. And then when you enter your payment method, again, just make sure that you've got everything correct. Typically, they're going to ask for your billing zip code. Make sure you don't get a digit wrong. I mean, I've seen so many suspensions for just, little mistakes like that during the setup process. So once you've got all that set up, hopefully you'll be good to go. And Google sees those things and there's no issues. But when it comes to the payment method, there's a couple of things you want to do there. Don't use a virtual card. And don't use a kind of prepaid card, like a Visa prepaid card, for example. Google does not like those, and you'll probably get your account suspended immediately. What you want to use is a payment method, either a credit card or debit card that actually has a physical card associated with it, not a virtual card. Or you could connect your bank account, or you could connect your PayPal account. Any of those are fine and relatively safe as long as, again, it's not a virtual card or anything weird going on. And as long as you have funds in that account. So that's another important thing because Google is going to send a test transaction to the account or card that you added the payment method. And if you don't have funds in there yet, like, oh, hey, I just created this and I haven't, added my bank account, and Google gets their charge declined, that's going to flag you. So make sure you've got money in there to pay the test transaction and make sure it's a legit kind of quote unquote normal payment method, not something virtual or prepaid. And then once you've got that set up, after that, you'll have the opportunity typically to start creating ads and actually have your website domain be in the account. And again, just be really careful. Don't create test ads like, oh, example.com. I just want to see what it looks like. Google's going to crawl example.com and associate that with your website or with your account, and you could have issues. So anything you create in Google Ads, make sure it's 100% something that you would plan to actually run, not just text or fake text in there. And then also make sure that you don't create any ads for your website until your website's 100% ready to go. Because as soon as you put your website domain in the ad and save the ad in Google, even if you've got the ad paused and you're not planning to run it yet, Google's still going to crawl your website. And if it's under construction or, fill in the blank, if there's anything on there that's going to look suspicious to Google, they're going to flag you right away and could suspend the account right away, even if you haven't enabled your ad to try and get traffic yet. So just those are, I'd say, probably the top things that I would say to be careful of when creating a new Google Ads account.
Okay. Wow. Thanks so much. That's a lot of really useful stuff. One thing that I found was really interesting in what you said is about the billing information has to match the address, which I imagine could be different for a lot of people if they have businesses. They're going to have a business card, and then their home address is going to be obviously their home address. And maybe a lot of people, that's what they're doing. A lot of businesses, they're using their business credit card, which has their business address with their home address. And you're saying that could be a red flag because that's an inconsistency, right?
I've seen that look suspicious to Google. Wow. Yeah, often. It's not a for sure thing because with Google's very inconsistent with how they flag things, and there's a lot of black box elements to it. But yeah, I've seen time and again, there's a mismatch between physical addresses and then the account gets flagged for suspicious payments.
Okay. Wow. Okay. That's good to know. And then when you said make sure you have some money in the account, is there like a minimum requirement that you would suggest?
I'd say a couple $100 is
Couple
fine. It doesn't
hundred?
have to be a high amount. Typically, when Google does a test transaction, it'll be about $50. And what they're
Mm-hmm.
doing is they're not actually fully charging your card. They're just kind of pinging you to make sure you have at least 50 to pay. So I'd say if you have a couple hundred, you should be safe.
Okay. And then what about using a VPN? Is there any red flags with using a VPN for Google Ads?
I would recommend not using a VPN when creating an account. That is something that can look suspicious to Google, especially if there's any kind of international aspect. If you're in one country, making it look like you're in another country through a VPN, anything like that. I have seen that create problems. And I've seen problems too when, for example, somebody's traveling. Maybe they're in the UK for 2 weeks and they happen to create an account while they're over there, and usually they're in the US. I've seen that flag things because Google sees abnormal activity in the IP address of the person creating the account, and they think, oh, maybe it got hacked or there's something weird going on. So yeah, when you create the account as well, like if you're on vacation, if you're traveling somewhere, hold off until you get back to where you typically live, and you don't throw any red flags up to Google for that reason.
Okay. And does this apply the same? Like, let's suppose you do set up your account and then you use it successfully normally for a month. Can you then use a VPN or it's still a no?
Yes, you can use a VPN to access it after that.
Okay.
It's really just during that creation process itself, where if you use a VPN, it can be a problem. Again, it's not a for sure problem. Plenty of people use VPNs to create accounts and they don't get flagged.
Mhm.
But when we're talking about what could be a risk and mitigating every possible risk, that is something that can be a risk at times.
Okay. And would you say, does Google prefer a Gmail account, email account when opening an account, or it really doesn't matter?
I haven't really seen it matter. It just has to be a Google account of some type. So it could be a Gmail account. It could be another email provider that's been linked to a Google account, like a YouTube account or Google Drive or something like that. Any of those should be fine.
Okay. And are there any other tips at all you can give for creating an account? Like any other potential red flags that Google can flag you for anything to do with anything at all?
Yeah, in terms of other, things I've seen that cause suspensions is, for example, a business owner has his virtual assistant elsewhere create the account, especially
Mm.
if they're internationally. I've seen that, flag things. Um, I have seen, again, mismatches, with payment information often. I have seen, so when you first create your account and you create what they call their payment profile, you have the option to set up your account as either an organization or an individual.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
you do want to think through that, because if you are going to be paying for the ad spend via a business payment method of some means, you should set the account up as an organization, and it will then ask you for a business name as well as a personal name. And you want to make sure you put the business name in there that matches whichever on the credit card or debit card statement or whatever you're going to pay for the account with. If you're just a person and you don't have a business, you're not operating as a business, and your credit card is tied to your name, then you'll want to create the account as an individual. And then they won't ask you for a business name. They'll just ask you for your personal name,
Mhm.
which again, you'll want to make sure matches what's on the payment method you add.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's huge. Like everything you said, and I think especially this payment stuff, because I think what some of my subscribers might be doing is using a different address than their
Mm.
like their home address versus their billing address, I think. And maybe even the name could be different too. And that could be a red flag probably, right?
Yeah. Oh, one other thing when it comes to the physical address, that is actually something that Google also looks at. Google does not like virtual addresses. So what I see
Mm.
happen often is someone will they'll set up a virtual address for their business affiliate or drop shipping or whatever. And, it's something when Google looks at it, oh, it's a UPS box, or, oh, it's not actually a physical location. Google does not like that. So I would use, if you have an actual business location, use that. You can use your home address because that's a real physical address. And if you don't want to use one of those, then at the very least, try and get a co-working space where there is actually a physical location and it's not virtual. You could actually go there and work from there. And those types of addresses generally are okay by Google, but virtual addresses, PO boxes, UPS addresses, things like that, often flag the system.
Okay. Wow. I think that was really helpful for sure. Lots of golden nuggets. So then I think that covers most of it for the first part, for that first main question. So then moving on to the second one, when somebody does create an account and they get banned, what do you suggest? What can somebody do?
So first, don't freak out. It is a big problem. Like there's no getting around that. But a lot of people, when they get suspended, they freak out and do things that hurt their chances of long-term success. So they immediately file, kind of a half-baked appeal that says something like, "I didn't violate policies. Tell me what I did wrong." And that's not going to get you anywhere, because what Google wants to see in an appeal is you saying, "Hey, I've gone through everything. Here's the changes I've made. Here's my documentation, etc." And if you expect to get an answer from Google in response to a question you ask in the appeal, that's not going to happen. Google's not going to tell you what you did wrong. They're not going to answer you with an answer. They're just going to say pass, fail. Yes, you're unsuspended, or no, you're still suspended. So don't submit a half-baked appeal. Don't call up Google and start yelling at the reps. That doesn't help your case either. You can definitely call Google and try and ask them questions. They're not going to tell you anything helpful, just be perfectly honest. But if you want to try it, you can. If they let you. Often what happens is once your account is suspended, you can't even access phone support because you enter that account ID and Google says, "Sorry, your account's suspended. You don't have access to support." So that's often what will happen, although not every time. So you get suspended. Also, do not go create a new account, because again, that's against Google's policies, and that's just going to make your case harder. So take a deep breath and look through everything for anything you might have potentially, messed up. Look very carefully at the policy reason that Google suspended you for. So if it's suspicious payments, which is one of the most common ones, typically that means there's something about the address you provided, the payment method, mismatches, things like that, where Google thinks there's something shady or weird going on related to your payment method. It's not always that. Sometimes that's just kind of a default policy and Google doesn't like you for some other reason. So there's still a lot of art and science that we bring to the table when we work with clients trying to figure out what might those other reasons be. But usually it's billing related. If it's a circumventing system suspension, which is another one of the most common ones that Google deals out, usually that means they think there's something shady going on with either your website. Maybe you've got redirects that you're not supposed to have. Maybe you're not clear on your website about what you're selling, who your business is. Maybe there's something weird with your ads. Maybe you're making claims that are unreliable, things like that. So similar to unacceptable business practices, that's another suspension, one of the more common ones. That usually means Google thinks there's something shady about your business model or unclear about your model. So go through everything, read all of Google's policies, try and make everything perfect, and then submit an appeal where you clearly lay out, look, I've gone through all of your policies. If you found any problems, explain what you did to fix them. Provide supporting documentation to Google saying, "Hey, here's who I am. Here's what my business is." And be respectful. Say thanks for your time. Apologize for violating anything. Thank you for reviewing our appeal. That kind of thing. Keep it respectful. That's the approach to take. Now, what we do, at StubGroup is we'll have clients who hire us to do all that for them because we know what to look for. We've helped, hundreds and hundreds of clients, and we've got checklists and best practices and tools we've developed and all sorts of things. So an ideal scenario for us is a client comes to us who's never submitted an appeal. So we have, fresh ground to work with. But typically what happens is an advertiser will try an appeal, maybe 2, maybe 3, maybe 4. They're all rejected, and then they come to us. And it's a little bit harder for us then because Google, the more appeals you give to Google, the less excited Google is about reviewing the next one, and the harder it is to actually get a review. But that's typically what happens. And so we dig into things and figure out maybe what the root cause of the suspension is, and then help our clients through the appeal process in that way.
Okay, awesome. And then is there anything else you can suggest to do aside from an appeal? Like if you delete a campaign or something, should you delete? Can you delete your campaigns and then submit an appeal? Will that work?
So yes and no. So you can delete your campaigns, but what you can't do is kind of remove the history associations from the account. So it's not like you can hide anything from Google to say, "Oh, I wasn't actually advertising this website." Google's going to be able to see everything that you've done, everything you've deleted. What you do want to do though is if you've made a mistake in a campaign, let's say for example, maybe you were getting more aggressive than you should have been in the claims in your ad copy. What you could do is you could delete the campaign and the ads and create a new campaign with new ads that's more in line with what you plan to use in the future. And so that's what Google's going to focus on in their review as an example of what you plan to advertise moving forward. So definitely make sure to delete anything that is kind of even remotely in the gray area where Google might say, that's too much, or that we think that might violate this policy or that policy. And this is incredibly crucial if you're in any kind of sensitive space like products related to health, supplements, weight loss, anything like that. Google's very, very paranoid about that and what you kind of claims you can and can't make, what kind of results you can and can't promise. You have to be very, very conservative in what you say about health-related products in order to make Google happy. As well as if you're in anything like the finance space, if you're selling products related to finance, crypto is a very sensitive space to Google. So just be conservative. Don't promise things and keep it safe.
Okay. And so the safest thing to do is to submit an appeal if you get banned. That's the best approach.
Absolutely. Yeah, okay. You should really. There's really no situation in which you shouldn't appeal a suspension. Okay. And if you're in a place where you're like, oh, I know I violated policies, they're not going to get me back on. Well, you're not a good fit, honestly, for Google Ads. If you're trying to violate Google's policies, they're going to catch you. It's not a good long-term fit for you. If you're going to use a platform, you've got to work within their policies.
Okay. So I'd like to come back to this then, to the appeal and exactly what you do. I definitely want to explore that a little bit more. I think your service could definitely be useful to a lot of people. Before we get into that though, so the last part is if you do get banned, and let's suppose somebody has already submitted a bunch of appeals. I'm sure I have some subscribers who've done that. It hasn't worked. And let's say even with your service, let's imagine worst case scenario, the small percentage of the time that, or whatever percentage of the time that you submit an appeal, it doesn't work. People do want to advertise and they say, screw it, I will break policies and I'm just going to create a new account. By breaking policies, I mean by creating a new account, I'm breaking the policy. But let's suppose somebody wants to do that. Do you have any suggestions for creating a brand new account after being banned? Like not using the same card, obviously, not using the same address. Is there anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So sometimes, like you said, you just hit a brick wall with Google where for whatever reason, they're not going to reinstate an account. And you still want to advertise with Google and bring in the money that you need to feed your family. So the way that we look at that is essentially you need to start from scratch with a different entity. So think about it like, look, the entity associated with this Google Ads account has been banned by Google. So if we're going to do something else on Google, everything has to be fresh and it has to really be a new entity, not just creating a new account for the same entity. So the ideal scenario is, look, if you had a business associated with the suspended account, create a new business entity, new business name. Definitely you need a new website. You definitely need a payment method that's in no way associated with the old account. So certainly it has to be a different card, for example, but it needs to be a different billing address. Again, different name on the card, whether it's a business name or a personal name. Everything needs to be different there. When you create the account, the more separation you can have from the old account, the better. So definitely a different email address and user, but ideally a different IP address, a different device, nothing that's connected back to the old account. And the more separation there is between the entity, the information that's on the website, so the business name on the website, any address you have on the website, any contact information on the website, that's all got to be different than what was on the previous website. And just truly, kind of the nuclear option, but everything be different. That's how you're going to maximize your success. And in that way too, essentially not violate Google's policies is the way that we look at it. Because if you're creating a new entity and starting from scratch, you are not creating a new account for the old entity that has a suspended account. So the way we look at it is you're actually following Google's policies. Sure, it's a gray area, but that's the best way to be successful in that start from scratch approach.
Okay. That's a good way to look at it. I love it. Okay. And then most of my subscribers are affiliates. Mm-hmm. Do you have any advice specific to affiliates?
I do. We get contacted by many affiliates looking for help. Some we are able to help, some we're not. A lot of it comes down to how you are approaching your affiliate business. So Google has some inherent concerns, we'll say, about the affiliate marketplace, because what Google wants to do is they want to provide original content to people who are using Google. And what they don't like are affiliates who just throw up, let's say, a really simple landing page that doesn't provide really any helpful information to a consumer. And the sole purpose of that page is to get the person to a different third-party website to place an order. Well, from Google's perspective, you're just a gateway page. There's no value. Google would rather just have the Google user go directly to that third-party website to place a sale there. And so I'd say most of the affiliate suspensions we see are because affiliates are just trying to do something, quickly with no unique value and be basically a gateway page, which is against Google's policies. So what you've got to do to be a successful affiliate marketer through Google Ads is you need to actually provide unique original value through your website and landing page to consumers. One example is kind of reviews and ratings. You'll see lots of websites out there using Google Ads where they've reviewed, let's say, 5 different products in a space, and they're giving actual real content saying, hey, here's the value, the price, the quality, etc. That is valuable to Google users because that's original, unique content that can help them. And so as long as you're not scraping that from somewhere else, as long as you're actually truthfully creating that and not just plagiarizing it from somebody else, that's going to put you in a better position to hopefully not get suspended. So that's one approach. You can take the approach of, hey, writing a big, long review yourself about something, again, with unique, valuable content that can be helpful. And essentially what you want to end up with is something that's really useful to the people who are coming to your website. And then you can encourage them to, hey, purchase this product. You can click this link to purchase this product. And you want to have really good disclaimers on your website as well, saying, look, we're an affiliate. We're going to be compensated for, if you click links to purchase this product, because you want to be straightforward, A, with your potential customers, but B, with Google. If Google is crawling your website or a human's reviewing your website from Google, and it looks like you're trying to confuse people or not be straightforward about your business model, that's a massive red flag. So just be straightforward. Mm-hmm. And then another big thing I see as well that will hang up a lot of affiliate marketers is they will misuse the brand name of the brand they're an affiliate for. So for example, let's say a brand name is ABC. A lot of affiliates will try and get a domain like buyabc.com or getabc.com. That looks to Google like you're trying to pretend to be a brand you're not. And Google's concerned that consumers are going to get confused if they see that brand name in the domain. So definitely do not use a brand name that you don't own in your domain, because that's a big red flag to Google. And then on your website, again, make it, and in your ads, both your ads and your website, make it really clear that you are not this company and that you're not pretending to be this company. Have disclaimers saying, hey, we're a third party. We have X, Y, and Z relationship with this company. In your ads, don't say ABC official site. You're not the official site for ABC. That's false advertising, and Google should correctly ban you for that. Make it super clear that you're a third party who has whatever relationship with this brand, and then don't pretend to be the brand. Don't put their brand logo in the top left-hand corner of your site so that people get there and think, oh, it's ABC. Just think common sense about, if I'm a consumer, what do I want to see on a website to make sure I have all the information possible, and then do that on your website. And even though, sure, it can hurt your conversion rate, quite frankly. Obviously, if you're pretending to be a brand and you can make people think you're that brand, that's going to improve your conversion rate. But that's not a long-term recipe for success, because that violates Google's policies. You're going to get banned. You might try and make a quick buck for a couple of days, and then you're going to have problems for the next rest of your life with Google. So play it safe, play it conservative, actually help the people that are getting to your website. And that's your best way to be successful with affiliate marketing long-term.
Okay. And then what about a review site for a specific product, like ABC product review? You're saying that's okay, right?
I would definitely not use the brand name in the domain, even if you're saying review or something like that, because Google's going to see that you're using a brand name in your domain that you're not authorized to use. And they're going to immediately think, oh, that could be confusing to customers. Even if you're not trying to confuse customers and nothing else about your website is confusing, that can still trigger Google's algorithm. So I would not put the brand name in the domain at all. I would be like, let's say, widgetreviews.com, the type of widget it is. If it's a mattress, mattressviews.com, that's fine. But casperreviews.com, that's a problem because Casper is actually a brand.
Okay.
But the concept of reviews, that can work well. Again, if you're providing original reviews on there saying, hey, I've slept on 5 different mattresses. Here's my observations from each. Here is the value and price point for each. And then here's a button you could click to go purchase each. And you've got a disclaimer there saying, hey, we're an affiliate. We'll make money if you click these buttons. That can work. And there's lots of websites using that approach successfully right now.
Okay. So I just meant in the headline, it would be okay to say like ABC reviews.
Oh,
reviews.
I see what you mean. In the actual ad headline?
Yeah.
That's tricky. So Google has something they call a reseller policy where technically if you're facilitating the sale of a product, you can use that product name in your ad copy. Let's say you sell Nike shoes and your eBay. Technically, you could say Nike in the ad copy, but often you're going to get flagged. Because if the owner of that trademark has claimed that trademark with Google, then there are a lot of restrictions around how you can use a trademark. And again, the more aggressive or less safe you get with how you're using the trademark or with using any brand name in ads, the more likely it is you're going to get suspended. So my recommendation would be definitely out of the gate, right after you create your account, don't use any brand names in ad copy. Start to build some history and kind of get through that initial review process with everything generic. Once you've been running maybe for a couple of weeks and you haven't had suspension issues, you could explore and play around with putting brand names in ad copy, as long as you're being, again, really careful, like you said, reviews of ABC, not ABC official site, and making it clear you're not in any way pretending to be the brand. You can play around with it. Sometimes it'll work, sometimes it won't. Google's just very inconsistent with how they approach things. So it's a bit of a risk-benefit analysis at that point.
Okay. So that answers most of the questions. I do have one more about this last part about landing pages that you said. And that is for a company that has a website, me, for example, ivanmana.com, I have a website. I have a lot of stuff on the website. So if I'm running ads to my site, I do want to build a landing page because I want to focus people's attention on the one thing I want them to do, which in my case is sign up to my free guide. I don't want taking people to my website and then distract them with all the hundreds of options I have. So I think the general rule of thumb is for people promoting places, they do want to create a landing page because they want to focus people's attention on the one action they want them to take. And I do see some landing pages on Google. So is it fair to say then that it's not that a landing page is bad, it's that the domain has to match. So if I'm taking people from my landing page, ivanmana.com/landing page, I have to take them to my website, ivanmana.com. So the issue is I can't take them from ivanmana.com/landing page to abcproduct.com. Is it fair to say that that's the main issue, like the mismatch of the domain name?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. And there's a couple kind of nuances I can unpack there. So yes, you can absolutely use landing pages. That's even a best practice that Google recommends because like you said, you want to focus the attention on what you're trying to communicate with that page, not distract people. So there's no problem at all with using a landing page. It should be, like you said, a landing page at your website /landing page, something like that. It should not be any kind of third party. It shouldn't be, landingpage.clickfunnels.com and anything like that. It should be on your main domain. And then from that landing page, you can have buttons, like let's say purchase now. You can have a button that links to a different domain. But if you have that, that's where that original content is so important. Because if Google just uses you as a gateway, we're getting to your website /landing page, and then the only thing to do is immediately click a button to go to a whole different domain, to go to abc.com. That's a problem. That's where Google use you as just a gateway page. So you need to have a lot of content on there. And as part of that content, you can link to abc.com and you may be okay. It's still a gray area. You may have issues because Google's not a big fan of affiliates just in general, but you can make it work.
Okay. And then what about what if I'm not taking people to an affiliate page? What if I have my landing page and my thank you page, and I say download free guide, and then I take people to the thank you page where they can click and download the guide, and then I just email them stuff? Is that okay?
That's even safer, yes, because you're not taking people off your domain. It's all self-contained, so there's no gateway aspect. You're just, offering something, and people are signing up for that. That's great, and then you can do whatever you want in email. That's separated from Google Ads. So if you want to say, hey, go to abc.com through this link in an email, that's perfectly fine. That's not a part of the process that Google's looking at.
Okay, so as long as you don't redirect, you're saying it's much safer to just
much safer,
everything.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And you definitely, if you have any kind of actual redirect, like for example, if you try to put in your ad, your website / landing page, and then you have like a technical redirect in the back end to try and send people to a different website, that'll immediately get you suspended, because that's 100% against Google's policies. The domain in your ad has to be the actual domain that people land on after they click your ad.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. So I think that answers most of the questions. I can't really think of anything else really that we didn't cover. So then I'd like to get back to exactly what you do in your process. So you do a lot. I mean, going over the entire account and submitting an appeal seems like a daunting task. Something people don't, I wouldn't want to go through all that myself. So could you explain exactly what you do, your exact process, and then if an appeal doesn't work, is there anything you do? Like what's the process?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've given a lot of info today, but it also sometimes feels like the tip of the iceberg, because every situation is so nuanced, and it feels like every time we get a new client, we work with a lot of people. There's some new thing we'll figure out, and hey, it's because of this reason or that reason. So a big part of what we do when we work with clients who hire us to get their accounts unsuspended is figuring out those nuances. And we've done it so many times for so many accounts that we know what to look for. So we do a full audit of the account to look for problems that could exist in there. Could be things like, the payment issues that we talked about. Could be things with the ads. It could be redirects and URLs. It could be other things. So we do a whole big audit of the account itself. And then we also do an audit of the website, and there's different policies that need to be on there that Google expects to see. There's different pieces of information. You want to look for, any kind of malicious links or things that we could flag as malware, because sometimes people don't realize there's a problem with their website like that until we start scanning it. And there's a whole big, checklist that we go through to audit every website and make sure everything looks picture perfect there. And then we're also looking at things like, hey, might there be other accounts that could be connected to this account? So often we'll have someone come to us and they won't realize that something they created 3 years ago is actually their root problem. And so we'll help kind of do the detective work, follow the rabbit trails to figure out what the true picture looks like and what needs to be fixed there. And so once we've gone through all of that and figured out what we think are any possible problems, then we'll craft an appeal in the way that we know Google likes to see appeals crafted. So again, respectful, be comprehensive, explaining what changes we made to comply with policies, providing documentation to Google that kind of proves your legitimacy as a business, things like credit card statements, things like that, making sure that Google sees that you're legit, you're not trying to hide things. And then we'll submit that appeal. And often that first appeal that we submit works, and that's a day of celebration. But often it doesn't too, because Google's, again, very inconsistent with their own review processes of how they apply policies and how they review appeals. And so sometimes it's a process of, hey, our first appeal was rejected. We'll push back on Google, try and request a manual review from them. Sometimes that's successful, sometimes not. If not, we'll often go back to the drawing board, see, hey, is there anything we missed? Anything maybe we decided not to try our first time, but we're going to try in kind of a second phase. We'll tweak the appeal as needed based upon those things, and we'll keep submitting appeals, trying to find any existing remaining problems each time, but keep pushing against the brick wall until we get through that brick wall with Google.
Okay, awesome. And then do you have, so normally in my experience, I know Google has a lot of robot customer support where I have to teach the customer support how to properly use Google Ads. Do you have access to real Google Ad humans that normal, people, the average affiliate might not have access to?
We do have access to real humans because we're a Premier Google partner. We have a team that we work with, and that allows us to do some things, but not others. So we also can't talk to the policy team, the people who actually make decisions about suspensions. There's a complete firewall between them and anybody external. So we can't go and say, hey, flip the switch. That doesn't happen. But there are some things that we can ask our team. We can ask them, for example, if a site's been flagged for malware, we can get more details about exactly what is Google flagging, so we can fix that. Or sometimes if it's kind of a convoluted account access payment question issue, we can get help from our team at Google about that, trying to figure things out. So there are some things that we can figure out and kind of get that advanced support with them. And then there are some things that we're still just kind of on our own, but because we've been doing this for a decade, we know what to do in those situations where an advertiser who's new to this has no idea because they've just never needed to go through this type of situation before.
Okay, cool. And then is there any limit to the number of appeals you send?
There's no hard and fast limit. There's no number where Google says, look, if you submit 5 appeals, that's it. But I'd say there's a point of diminishing returns. So the more appeals you submit, the less likely it is generally that Google is going to accept later appeals unless you're discovering big new things that weren't fixed previously that you can fix. But if it's just basically the same thing, if you're saying, hey, I think everything's good to go and submitting appeal after appeal, you'll eventually get to a point where it's like, you know what, Google, they're being a brick wall in this case. And at this time, for whatever reason, it's not going to be successful. Sometimes it's worth coming back to Google in 3 months, 6 months. And I've seen situations where we've done that and submitted the same appeal and gotten success down the road just because we've either Google's tweaked their system in the intervening time because they're always changing, or maybe things have just cooled down enough to where we got a different policy team member to look at things. So that's also always an option on the table.
Okay. And then what do you normally do if you do hit this brick wall? Do you just wait then and then submit another appeal a few months later?
It really depends on the client and what their goals are. Sometimes if we completely hit that brick wall, we will assist a client with that kind of start from scratch approach where a completely new entity and not violating Google's policies by approaching things that way. And we'll assist them with that. And sometimes we can be helpful to them too in creating a separation between the payment method in the new and old account. Sometimes we'll have clients where we'll actually pay ad spend to Google on their behalf in the new account. So there's complete separation. And then sometimes it's a waiting game. It really depends on what the client's goals and tolerance is.
Yeah, cool. Okay. So that's awesome. So sounds like what a lot of my subscribers could really use. So then I'm going to put a link to the website that they can go to contact you then in the description of this video. It's going to be go.ivanmana.com/StubGroup. So easy to remember. And hopefully you and your team can help them out in case all the other options have failed the affiliates and the subscribers in the past.
Yeah, we'd love to help. Definitely reach out to us. And typically what we do is we'll have an initial conversation, figure out what's your situation, what are you going through, and see whether or not we think we can help you. And if we do think we can help you, then we'll obviously go through the details and pricing and all that good stuff and get things started, and then get you on the path to getting out of Google jail.
Perfect. Oh, and one more question. How long does this process take?
There's a wide range. We'll get clients suspended within a couple of days and sometimes a couple of months. I would say on average, plan for at least 4 to 6 weeks of us working through things and submitting appeals. It could be faster than that. If so, awesome. Sometimes it's longer than that, but as an average, just kind of plan for 4 to 6 week time frame.
Okay, that's good. I prefer longer. I like to save the best for last. So the longer it is, to me, it seems like the more quality work you're putting into it, the more effort you're putting into it to make such an amazing appeal that Google would have to be in trouble not to accept it.
Exactly.
All right. So I think that about wraps up then this call. John, thanks so much. You've helped a tons of useful information. And again, if anybody wants to contact John to help, he's much more experienced and professional than me in this regard. Take a look at the link in the description, and hopefully John and his team can help you guys get your account back as well. So, John,
thank you, Evan.
Thank you.